Good morning, good afternoon, good evening to all my friends and viewers around the world. I'm thrilled to introduce our podcast guest today, Kasia, a dedicated community builder with over a decade of experience. Kasia's passion for creating environments where people can learn, connect, and flourish is truly inspiring. Kasia's journey began at Ubud, a renowned co-working space in Bali, celebrated by Lonely Planet and Forbes as one of the top 10 co-working spaces globally. At Ubud, she led marketing and community building efforts, showcasing her skills in event planning, strategic planning, and project management. Today, Kasia leads the Running Remote community, part of the fastest growing conferences on flexible work. This exclusive community serves founders and people operations executives from top remote and distributed companies like GitLab, Hotstar, Doist, Toggle, Typeform, and Mural. Her expertise in digital marketing, product marketing, and lead generation has been instrumental in fostering this vibrant community. With a deep understanding of the challenges remote leaders face, Kasia is dedicated to providing a platform where they can create meaningful change and excel in their professional lives. Her experience in event marketing, email marketing, and virtual assistance further enhances her ability to connect and support remote leaders effectively. Join us as we delve into Kasia's insights and experiences in building thriving communities. Hi, Kasia. How are
Hi,
you?
Sagar. Thank you so much for this beautiful intro. Thank you so much for inviting me today, and good morning, good afternoon to everyone. I'm great.
Great.
How are you?
I'm doing great. I'm excited. I've been waiting for this podcast to happen. There's a personal reason to it. There are very few people on this planet, as much as you see, but there are few people who have hardcore expertise in community. And in my journey, although I wear several hats, but I feel that uh, being a community person, uh, this comes from our basic, I would say, biology or humans as nature, right? And this role has come up or has evolved now to all the top organizations. So I am here to learn from you on your last 10 years of your community experience. Although there are so many different sat, again, you have one. But yeah, excited to have you and have a genuine, meaningful, heart to heart conversation and sharing your experiences to the wonderful remote leaders and, of course, leaders around the globe so that they can tap into your intellectual wealth and use it to their advantage. So, thank you, Kasia, for being here.
Thank you so much. Ask me anything. I'm an open book.
So, just wanted to understand, sometimes we feel that our careers are planned, and sometimes we feel that, hey, like, this is very intentional. So, I'd love to know more about how did you get into community, and how it sort of uh, changed you as a person, or helped you become who you are today.
hmm Thank you. It's an interesting question. I wonder if I was a community builder from the beginning, or it was the roles that changed me. I need to think about it more. But the way the community building journey started for me was in Bali, as you've mentioned, in the beautiful bamboo, barefoot co-working space that was became top 10 co-working spaces in the world. And obviously everyone was drawn to the space, and it was very Instagrammable, and so community building there was happening automatically and organically. It was beautiful to see, yet we've put a lot of effort into integrating everyone and making sure it's happening, and there were a lot of events, but it was so much easier than, as I can see now, building an online community. So interestingly, as part of Hubud, we've been also creating as you know, the co-working and conference events around Asia, and that's how we've met before you joined the Running Remote community, which is a really nice loop. um, and what also happened when I was part of Hubud was that the running remote conference happened. The first one happened in Bali, and they've approached Hubu to be their operations partner. So I knew running remote from the very beginning. And then when time has come, time has come, and I've talked with Igor, the producer of Running Remote, about running remote community for running remote. I took up upon this challenge, which is totally different. Building a running remote community it was such a challenging yet rewarding project, because that's not in person, that's all virtual, and that takes so much more time.
Yeah. So thank you for highlighting that. So I think that gives me a very good, starting point to delve into, like, what are the fundamental differences of building an offline community versus an online community?
Mhm. Yeah, I mean, the fundamental thing is the obvious thing is that everyone is online, and so their attention is like all over the place, all over you're fighting for their attention because they have many tabs open, there are many screens open. There's a phone, there's a computer. So it was so much easier when people were at a co-working space, and you can easily just come to them and say, "Hey, do you want to join this event? I think you would be interested." So um, you're fighting for people's attention basically, so it's so much harder. And also because you are not in person, you have to be very tangible. How do you create those touch points? How do you connect with them? How do you grab their attention? So this is the main difference. And I think because of that, it also takes so much longer. Literally, I the 3 years ago when I started, I didn't feel there was a community, but I can say that it's a community now 3 years later. So um, it takes times and persistence, and you need to be ready for that when you're building an online virtual only community.
Nice. So, what are some of the best practices that is helping you first, and then the community? In terms of, be it engagement, in terms of, actually people coming out and helping each other. So, what are some of the best practices? If you, it would be great if you could share that.
Hmm. I think starting a community, or if it's a community, internal community for a company, like the main thing is having clear purpose and goals. You have to have it well defined and understand it, because that will provide direction and motivation for your community and yourself. It helps aligns your efforts and fosters a sense of belonging. So you have to have that. And if you're building a company, whether that remote or not, you also have that. You have your vision, your mission, so that will guide you. And then once you have that, I think the psychological safety is so important. So creating an environment where people can, they don't feel like they will be judged, and when they can open up, when they can share their stories, when they are feeling safe to do that and ask questions, and know that their contribution will be also recognized. That's another thing, uh, because you need to create that culture of reciprocity. So people sharing, people helping each other out, and it only can happen when people feel safe. Um, and then you need to recognize what all the little contributions, bigger, smaller. So if someone stood up and said, "Hey, I want to run a meetup," like it happened recently for the APAC, where you've been at this meetup. Akash just came and said, "Hey, how can I help?" And I said, "Why don't you do a meetup?" So recognizing that, sharing that with others, sharing that on your LinkedIn, and recognizing literally, all little things by various in different various like it can be a DM and saying just simple thank you. And so that recognition is super super important. And I think one thing that I never forget, and it guides me like every day in building community, is how can I bring more value, and how I can shorten that time from the time they join the community until they see the value. Like I would like it to be immediate. So for instance, um, I onboard all members till now, like on one-on-one calls by myself, and the one of the first questions is like, "What's your challenge? So what are you struggling with? How can I help?" And I often come during that call. I can share the resources. I can share discussions, post this, previous discussions, we've talked about that topic, and I can introduce them right after the call to people who can help them out. So like thinking about the value and consistently providing more value is how you can build a successful and scalable community. Although not a lot of those things don't scale, and that's one thing that you also need to understand when you build a community, that it's very true in startup building, and it's a very true in community buildings, that you will do a lot of things that don't scale, but they bring value. So just keep doing that.
Wow, that's a wonderful way of sharing. Kasia, what are some of the challenges that remote leaders face, or
Mhm.
that you have seen, in terms of, let's say, building communities in their respective organizations? So it would be great if
Mhm.
you could share some, throw some light there.
Yeah. Uh, so because we have an application process to the community, I read those challenges every day, because one of the questions are, what's your challenge, and what's your goal for the next 6 months, right? And I think it's not going to be a surprise here. Like pretty much every second application, connecting employees and engaging employees is mentioned as a challenge. And that's the same challenge that I have as a community builder. So here we can relate and we can help each other out. So as much as I'm giving value to community members and showing ways we can connect, I'm learning from them as well all the time. So it's super interesting, because I'm building a community of community leaders, of like remote leaders, and they're learning their own communities inside companies. So we are learning as we go. So definitely the culture building, engaging employees, connecting employees, especially if a company went remote due to the pandemic. And as you know, that a lot of the companies did that, or they're hybrid or distributed. So they have harder time to understand this, because they've been in the office before. So they need to first break those habits that were in the office and try to recreate some of that online. So that is definitely a challenge. Productivity is mentioned often as a challenge, especially if they transition and they don't understand that being a remote company means focusing on the outcome and not at time that the employee spends while working remotely. um, what else? Performance management, transparency, scaling, obviously scaling, like whether scaling people ops operations or scaling transparency or scaling remote culture. What happens with remote culture as we grow um, rapidly, because we have companies like that in the community. But again, like the most common one is culture, community building, engaging employees. That's like, I would say 70% of remote companies.
Yeah, yeah. Just slightly going deeper here, building community is about definitely giving and helping, and
Mm-hmm.
also it is about receiving. Just wanted to understand, there are, I mean, in my journey, I have realized that some of the leaders that I work with or I interact with, they're very good at giving, but they're not
Mm-hmm.
good at asking for help. So, with
Mm.
your experience and your journey, what are some of the steps that one can
Mm.
take in asking for help?
That's an interesting insight. But absolutely, you are right. Like, first, I want to touch upon giving, because it's something that it's incredible. Like, I think the running remote community is like anything else out, like on the internet. The people here are so extremely generous, and you've seen that probably, and they're super thoughtful and insightful. When often people ask for help here, they don't realize that they will get answers like a block size answers, right? So in the async ask me anything that we run, the answers people get are literally, you could write a blog post on every question that you ask. So that's definitely happening. And part of the reason why it's happening is because remote companies are building in public. They are very
Hmm.
open on how are they doing it. They're very transparent, and they are advocates for remote work. they love it, they're passionate about it. So they're not by nature, they're like this, they're naturally giving. Now when asking for help, it's definitely a challenge for many. You don't want to look stupid, you don't want to look like a question like that have been asked already, and why am I asking it? So I think it's just human touch. Like every onboarding call I have, like I keep repeating, like, don't be afraid of ask questions. Like, even if you have asked a question that we've talked about already, the worst can happen is that I'm going to link to that discussion that already happened and you have your answer. If you are afraid of asking a question, what I'm also building is a huge database of all the remote challenges and insights and ideas and advice that we've shared in this community for the past 3 years. So we have it in Notion. So if you don't want to ask a question, you just go there and you search for it instead. But I think being, yeah, encouraging those members. I keep two members on a daily basis, and I often come back to their community application and I look at the challenge they've mentioned. So after a few months they've been in the community, I would ask them, how did it go? This was your challenge. Did you get any help on that challenge? Or maybe your challenge has changed. So I don't think it's like a rocket science. It's like being there for them and asking, how can I help? And once they ask that first question, I think they realize, how welcoming these people are here, and they like it's just that first question that they need to ask, and they open up. But we also have a rule in the community that first you should give twice before you ask a question, because it's important. Like, you don't come here just to get your challenges solved. You also come here to contribute and to share your insights. We all have those insights, so it's also an important thing that I share with the community members.
Yes. Thank you for sharing that, Kasia. So, in the last 10 years, specific to remote work, how community building has evolved. Any
Mm-hmm.
any observations, insights you would like to share?
Oh, well, first of all, I think the amount of tools that we have for community building now is overwhelming. It's just overwhelming. There's tools for communities. There's still for community buildings. There are tools for hosting events. Incredible amount of tools. There's tools for managing engagement. There's a tool for everything. And now with AI
Yeah.
and ChatGPT, it's like changing every day. So I think it's incredible and also a bit overwhelming for community builders,
Mm,
because you're trying to build connections, you're trying to create trust, and you don't necessarily want to automate everything and have bots talking to members, because then they don't come here to talk to AI. They come to here to meet other members and talk and have their challenges solved. So I think there's a balance that we need to address here. So AI is changing a lot. I think communities are also much more diverse because, like, we have, because of those tools, we can literally have someone from India, and we can have someone from Hawaii, and we can have someone from Russia, and they're all over the place. So that brings a lot of other challenges. How do you organize events that everyone can attend? And again,
yeah,
tools can help you with that, but we are all more interconnected, and I can also see that. My hope, at least, is that more businesses will become more community led and thinking of communities first, and members, and um, as they create, for instance, products, thinking of their users and who are they create that for. So yeah, but tools, that's for sure what has been changing a lot, and diversity.
yeah, yeah. Uh, you made a very important point of trust being the center of community building. And
Mm.
so, what advice or suggestions you have? Let's say, yes, absolutely. The tools are overwhelming, and when you look at, I would say, tools that help you find the right people. also,
Mm.
then you
Mm.
just go and in your heart that, hey, like, I really want to connect with that person in
Mm.
the community. But hey, do I know that person enough? Is there any trust developed between, let's say, a person A and person B, right? So,
Mm.
sharing here a slighter context just to get your perspective on,
Mm.
what are some of the ways where, be it leaders or community contributors, how do they establish trust? And what are some of the ways, if someone who is, maybe an, I wouldn't say, for the lack of better word, I'm using the word introvert, but I would say someone, who doesn't understand the dynamics of networking. How can one build trust?
Mm. Yeah, great question. I think it doesn't happen overnight. That's the first thing that you need to know. So it's gonna take some time. And in fact, I really love this anecdote about community building that one of the community builders shared with me at CU Asia, actually at the conference that we've both been at. And she said that community building isn't for marshmallow eaters. And she referred to this famous Stanford experiment in which children were given a choice. You either eat one marshmallow now or you get two marshmallow later. And that experiment showed the concept of delayed gratification, which in context of community building is super important because you're going to put a lot of time and effort and you invest a lot of time in the community building, but you're only going to see the results in a year, in 2 or maybe 3 years. So I think don't overestimate that. Like you need to build trust. It's gonna take slowly if it's online. Um, and slowly, like just talking to people, understanding, trying to understand them. Like the members, your team members or the members of your community, they have all the answers. They know what they need, they know what their challenge is, they know who they need to connect with. So you need to make that effort and come to them and ask those questions. Um, and like they will give you an answer. Recently I'm working on a so I set a goal for myself. I'm going to schedule 5 events, like deep dive events for the community for the next 4 months. And I was thinking, okay, looking at all these challenges, there's so many. I got overwhelmed. Like, what is the one that I'm gonna do? And I talked to the people ups in the community that I wanted because that event was supposed to be for them. And within 5 minutes, I had my answers. And then I asked, do you have anyone who would you want to come, lead a workshop like that? And again, they delivered. And then we've decided transparency is our next workshop. And then I asked, so what are the questions you have on transparency that you need help with? And again, they gave me 10 insights on the transparency. So like it's just about asking people questions and like showing them that you really care, that you're there to support them, that you're building them that for them, that you are want to bring value, that it's all members are the center of your attention, and you're not doing it just for the sake of doing it. Um, so like focusing on members. Experimentation is super important as well in community building because there's going to be you constantly need to change your strategies. You create one initiative, it doesn't work, it fails, and then you move on to the next one, and it's going to be like this all the time. And that's why community building is so hard, and that's why those companies, as I told you, like 70% of community members have a challenge with engaging employees. And it doesn't matter if they were remote from the beginning or they are remote from for the last 2 months or 2 years, because it's not something that you can just do once and you are like, okay, I've done a community, my work done is done here, and I can leave and start building another product, and this community is going to leave by itself, because it's not. Like within a few months of you not taking care of it, it's just going to slowly die, and very slowly, sorry, not very slowly, it's actually going to be quite fast that you realize it's dying. So experimenting all the time, and not being afraid of failure, because you're going to fail a lot, and some things are going to stick, and you just build upon that. I
Mhm.
think I went off topic a bit, but
No,
I
no,
want
it's
to.
fine. It's fine. In fact, it helps me, go to the deeper insight and try and extract more. So thank you for sharing that. This gave me an insight and rather a question, like where do you see future of communities going, like by 2030 or 2035, with the overwhelming tools, of course, that are not going to leave us anytime soon, but where are
Yeah.
we heading?
Yeah, that's a hard question because with AI, everything is changing daily. So like predicting something for the like 30 next years, it's impossible now. But where I see it's changing a lot is or the future. Like I think the trends. Are you asking me about the trends that
Yeah,
I'm
what your trends, and what are something where you visualize, or maybe you see it may or may not happen, but just comes to
yeah.
you.
I think communities will play, and or that's my hope, but I also think it's going to happen, is that they will play much bigger role in education. Education nowadays is broken. Like we are learning things that AI is changing the next day. So that has to and you know the governments, the education, the curriculum doesn't change fast enough. It doesn't keep pace with everything that's changing. So and communities can play a huge role because literally you can learn anything you want. You have everything on internet now. You can do it. What's stopping us? Like we don't need universities to learn. Yet we are not doing that because it requires motivation from us. It requires being diligent and doing it actually. But if you're doing it together with the community, with your peers, they're gonna this is gonna fast track because first they're the peers, they're learning at the same thing as you are, you're on the same journey, you are there being accountable to each other. So I think community is going to change the way we are learning, or that's my hope, that it's going to affect education and it's going to be more important. Like on the CV we will not only write I've studied this because I've studied biology. How relevant is this to my work now? It's not relevant, but the fact that I've been part on this community or that community and I've contributed to those communities is so much more relevant, right? So that's one thing. I think I see that communities are becoming more niche, and I think that's also fantastic. I There's a reason why our community is just for founders and people ops of remote companies, because they are the people who daily work on this, who daily work on the culture, engaging employees, best implement remote management practices in their companies. So if someone comes to me here and says, I'm a marketer at a remote companies, I want to join because I'm part of a remote company. Yes, you are, and yes, you are a leader, and yes, this knowledge would be useful to you, but you are not the one who are implementing it for the whole company. You are doing it for your little team, and it's the people ops person that is going to do that at your company. So there is a reason for that. So I think niche communities are the future, and you see that probably happening. And there is community for, I don't know, chess players, and there's community for people who are running, and there's community for people who I don't know, artsy communities, anything. Like you can find communities for anything probably, and it's just going to be more and more niche.
Yeah.
Uh, I also think that we're going to be meeting more in person. That
Yeah.
while we might start remotely, we might start virtually. And all the remote companies, they know that if they bring people at least once a year in person, they can build the trust within the 2 days. While remotely, it's going to take years, right? So that's why they're building the retreats,
Yeah.
the offsites. That's why they invest so much money in those retreats and offsites. So and I think for online community, it's gonna happen. It's happening as well. It's happening definitely for the running remote community. We want to bring people in person as well because it's helping us engaging people at a level that it's not possible to engage them online.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you for sharing. I agree to almost all the points you share. Interestingly, there is a community in India at the moment. It's called 10xer Club. It's a newly
Mhm.
launched community. Uh, it's a community of, let's say, uh, mid to senior level of marketeers. Every Sunday, connect on a call which is led by one of the CMOs of top organizations, and they're addressing a very big challenge. Then come multiple challenges that they're addressing. One of the challenges that once you're in a, let's say, mid to senior level, you're a marketer, and with the changing dynamics of, let's say, the AI and the way marketing world has evolved. So uh, you know getting these talented people at various levels, be it in organizations or agencies, becomes a challenge. Plus the accelerated learning that happens, considering the current trends. So they are beautifully have merged. So
Mm,
education, I mean, gone are the days where I would say, I think this is my view of this, is that you really have to study marketing for a year. Within six
mm,
weeks you're getting what is happening in the industry, the case. In fact, they share a case, or rather you build a product or a business in those 6 to 8 weeks, and which is actually live, which maybe they can showcase it to the overall marketing world. So I think this is something that I saw. I think there are many initiatives like that. But then
mm,
I mean, I can see that, because I mean, I'm part of that community, so I know how they are using education/community to build network,
mm.
trust, and get. So yeah, I mean, when you said that, that particular example came to my mind. And
Yeah.
definitely, once a year or maybe twice a year, and depending upon which continent, maybe thrice a year, I think it's a good way. uh,
Mm-hmm.
Ultimately it has to boil down to people coming together and having a good time.
Yeah.
I just wanted to understand one word that people aren't using these days quite often, uh, is the overall experience planning.
Mm-hmm.
Ultimately, when you shared an example of, let's say, chess player, people having their own community, leaders
Mm-hmm.
having their own community, maybe there are so many mental health communities, right?
Mm-hmm.
Uh, okay, what I see is, maybe you can correct me, uh, that there's definitely people want to initiate, but ultimately it has to result in the experience and outcome, right? Outcome can be can be individualistic in nature for someone, but how to ensure that the experience is well defined and is well planned. So your thoughts on that?
Mm-hmm. Right. I just wanted to get back on for a second on the retreats and why they're important. And Atlassian actually did that. They measured how much people are and how long people are engaged until once they've done a retreat, right? And that's about 4 or 5 months. So that engagement, that passion, that that vibe that you've created at the retreat lasts online for about 4 up to 6 months. So that's why companies do retreats at least once a year, but ideally would be twice a year. So now going back to your question on now I lost
Experience
on
planning.
experience, right? So yeah, it's important to map it out in some way, like, and write down the touch points. So how the member joined, and then 6 months of being in a community or in a company, like probably people ops or HR professionals do the same. And I think it's important to write down those touch points and make sure what you want them to be doing at that point, like what kind of value you want them to get at this point, or how should they feel once they've been part for 3 months of in the community. What should they feel? What should they have experienced already? What should they done, or what you should have done in that time? So like having that mapped out is probably where I would start, and making sure it's like human centric, it's people first, it's members first. It's all about providing value, and it's about their experiences.
Yeah, yeah. Because one thing that I've observed in this part of the world, be it community, or let's say there are so many even product-led groups, or like there are
Mm-hmm.
so many different social groups, right? When let's say the final outcome is, of course, you want better engagement with your customers. You want
Mm-hmm.
better, let's say, overall engagement, be it in social media or otherwise. but the experience, when the time comes to deliver experience, then things go for a toss. So this is what I have realized in at least this part
Mm-hmm.
of the world. And I think
Mm-hmm.
that's a very, very big problem. And I'm glad that the community industry also has the answer to solve this. So that's how
Mm-hmm.
I came to that point, because ultimately,
Mm-hmm.
why aren't we using the word experience? So thank you for
Yeah.
sharing that.
I think you've touched on a very important topic that I think community leaders have different opinions on that, but the engagement, like I think um, engagement is just such a broad and not necessarily helpful metric to measure community because I can tell you how many likes we have on every post. You see that I can tell you how many, if you quantify it,
Yeah,
um, how many people commented on the post. But what does it say? It says nothing. Like it's not ultimately, it's not about measuring the engagement, but it is about the value people get. People don't come to communities because they are engaged. Obviously, that's what it should be engaged like, but they don't come here to count the likes. They come here because they want to see they have a problem. They have a real challenge that they need solving. So ultimately, like the way you want to measure it, and it's very difficult, is like how they will contribute to solving your challenge. So um, that's where community building is very very difficult as well, because when what stakeholder leaders want to see is like the numbers, the engagement, but where you as a community builder, what you feel, what should be measured is the value, and so there is this disconnect here. And but there is ways to measure it. Obviously you can create um, some at least ways, like you can get quantitative qualitative data. Like recently I did a community post check survey for the first time, but there's data that you can get that are qualitative, and it's like quantitative, like NPS, like it's clear, it's a number. And then you can get deeper and ask people, as I did, what are the three words that you would describe the community, and you get like a cloud of words with like 100 words, and then you can analyze it. Are How many of them are negative, how many of them have a positive connotations, and you can we can ask for stories, and those are things you can still show the stakeholders and leaders to show the value of the community. Because if you see a quote from the last community survey was that, I jumped on a one-on-one call with someone, and they shared their challenge on retreats building, and I just offered advice, and now they're my client, and they're consultant, and I never thought that finding a client in community is possible. So that's something that you can show to your leaders. That's something that community is doing, and I think that's for me more valuable that number of likes on in our
yeah,
Slack community.
absolutely, absolutely. Thank you, Kasia, for sharing that. So how does one ensure that there is a continuous learning and growth within the community? How should one develop a learner's mindset? I mean, if I were to put it that way.
Mhm. Yeah, I think some things that I've already mentioned. I think you constantly need to be in touch with your members, with your product users, with your employees, and just ask them, what do you want to learn. There is an enormous amount of knowledge they have. They have, but they also want to learn all the time. Like um, one of the greatest initiatives, I think, in the community are the masterminds. So those are small peer-to-peer sessions that are happening once a month, and they are for a group of people, maximum 10, 12, that are extremely well they were recruited for the mastermind, so they're not random, and they're either people ops executives at smaller remote companies, or people ops executives are bigger remote companies like Dois, like Hotjar, like Airlo, or they're leaders of big remote companies or smaller companies, and they're based in APAC or they are based in LATAM. So
Yeah.
they've been recruited, they have same role, they have similar company size, and they are going through the same challenges. So for me, they were instrumental being part of this masterminds and facilitating those masterminds. And I do about 60 of them, 60 sessions per year. So there are people coming there with a challenge every month, uh, and others helping them out with that challenge, share their shared experiences, their insights on that challenge. So I like every week I have those sessions, right? So I leave knowing what people are struggling with. So I think being in touch with your users, employees, and your members is, there's no shortcut to that. Like, you just need to talk to people and know what they want to learn. Like, same with if you will to build a learning and development program for your company. How are you supposed to build that if you don't know what people want to learn?
Yeah.
What's one very cool insight I got from one of the masterminds on learning and development programs, and specifically, was that, often you build that and like no one is using it, no one is signing up. That probably
Yeah.
means you haven't created the right product for the right audience. But sometimes it's about renaming it. Sometimes it's just using the right language. And in MailerLite, for instance, they've changed their learning and development budget into Joy budget, and now it's like take that money, have some fun, and then share with your colleagues inside the company. And now people are using it. So sometimes it's a simple thing as the language you're using.
Yeah. Yeah. So, just wanted to get a perspective from you. At Running Remote, we are building a community which is about for remote leaders and folks who are in the remote arena, right? And then there are
Hmm.
companies like GitLab, Hotjar, which of course are folks are in the part of the community. But then, how community building in remote
Hmm.
environment is different within the organization, and let's
Hmm.
say a community like running remote, which has leaders from respective organizations that are part of the community. So what are the fundamental differences in both of these?
Hmm. Yeah, I mean, my perspective is from building a community of founders that work with different companies, right? So I don't have that insights from being inside the community, inside the company and building a community, but I can see how similar those experiences are. Like, I can see how much I can learn from them and how much they can learn from me. There's, of course, I had every community builder, I think, but I have huge imposter syndrome, and I came to this masterminds. It took me a lot of effort to actually lead them and facilitate, thinking, how can I do this? Like, I cannot relate to them. I'm not working for a company. I'm not a founder, or I'm not a people ops. And then by like just listening to people, I've learned, and listening and reading all the conversations that are happening in the community, I've learned how much knowledge I gathered over those 3 years. So at this point, I'm definitely contributing as well and bringing value to those masterminds, not just facilitating. Um,
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
for sure there's a difference, but I would say that there is more similarities than differences,
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
we are all in this, like the obvious difference is that community members are paying for their membership to be part of this, while employees are getting paid. So obviously they have more interest in being part of the community. So I would say that for me it's probably harder because they've paid for it, they have expectations, and they want to see the value quite fast, because like, I've paid for it. After a year, I'm going to be re-evaluating, does this bring me value, should I stay and keep paying?
Yeah.
Whereas in the company, it's just different dynamics. But essentially, I think we are all in the same boat and build and engaging people, and it's not um,
Yeah.
uh, an easy thing.
You touched upon a very sensitive yet very important topic about uh, in being, like, let's say, the imposter syndrome, or
Mm,
I know this is slightly off topic, but
mm,
even I have faced it in my life, and I'm sure a lot of viewers who are aware, they will accept it. or some of, see, it's a part and parcel of whatever a growth, specifically in the world of startups, where founders,
mm,
they have to meet so many different people, and they have to in a way convince, or otherwise also in an organization. So what are some of the steps that you could
mm,
suggest to work on it? Because I feel that it will help the
mm,
person to give better. And rather, I think
mm,
the question that I asked on asking for help, I think that will help
mm,
the person to ask for help better. So just wanting
mm,
your in your journey, how do you?
mm.
It would be
How do
great to
I
hear. Yeah,
tackle imposter syndrome? I struggle with it every day, so it's not like I'm over it. And
yeah.
I think one thing that I've
But
done, and
yeah,
it also helped.
Kasia, the good part is we are on a podcast which is live, and you are sharing it, which means that you have really worked hard to like just go and like just share as it is. So I
Yeah,
really want to acknowledge that. Please go ahead.
yeah, yeah. We talked about that before coming live.
Yeah,
Like it's
yeah,
part of
yeah,
the for me. What I'm doing here with you is getting out of the comfort zone and like sharing what I know because some people might find it useful.
yeah,
So like getting out of the comfort zone, definitely. I think I what I keep on my desktop on my computer is like I called it the happy folder. And so when someone send me a message in the community or share something about community on LinkedIn and say, "Hey, I love this mastermind," or "I love how are you building this community," I know how much work that is. I screenshot those and I put them in my happy folder, and I look at them. Not that I look at it daily, but I would have when I would have doubts like, does this make sense? Like no one is engaging today, uh, because summer, for instance, summer everyone is so busy. Like not only people are already busy, but it's also sunny outside. It's beautiful. People are on vacation. How do you get them to contribute here now? So I think also I realizing that there is those times in a year when you just have to let go, and things will be slower and more quiet, and that's it. But in moments like that, when you have doubts, like it's good to go back to those comments, to those messages that you've received from members, knowing that what you're doing provides value. And so for me that was this happy folder that I keep on my desktop to make sure that I look at it when I doubt, when I have the imposter syndrome, and like getting out there. Like I wouldn't say being a yes person to everything. I don't know. It might be too hard at the very beginning, but saying yes to every second podcast invitation, and like just starting small, um, sharing on LinkedIn. Like that's also where I think I've started, and I saw, oh wow, people are interested, and then like doing one little steps at a time. So it can be maybe starting write if you feel more comfortable writing, like I do definitely more comfortable writing, and then when you want to start with public speaking, start small and like small little baby steps.
yeah. Thank you for sharing that. Any suggestions for folks who aspire to be part of the community industry, who are because I mean, it is like it is just in the last few years that the entire community sector has evolved, I would say, at least in this part of the world. But because if I remember, before 2015, 2016, there was no roles of or responsibilities of
Mm,
being a community manager or being the
mm,
head of community or chief community officer. I think all these responsibilities have evolved in the last 4 5 years. And
mm,
any suggestions or advice to people who are actively seeking to, like, they
mm.
want to start their career into community, or b, if they want to take leadership roles in the community industry?
Right. Yeah, you're right. I think community profession has evolved so much. I think a few years back, like it was such a buzzword. It's still a buzzword, but everyone wanted to have a community. Every company was building a community. Like no matter whether they needed or not, or they had no idea what they were doing. So there was so many community managers out there and so many roles. And then the recent layoffs what happened was that community builders were the ones to fire because it's so hard to show ROI on community building, and it takes so much time. So companies were like, well, hey, we just need to cut something. Let's cut community because that doesn't show like a direct, immediate ROI. So it's been quite sad to see that, but I really hope that we'll see more businesses community led, and so and doing it with more strategic thinking, not just because everyone doing it is doing it. I think how you can start, I think you can join communities. Like a lot of them are for free, and just be out there and ask people, how can I help? And like get to that mindset of helping people, because that's what, as a community manager, community builder, that's what you will be doing daily. See if you
Yeah.
like it. Because it also very, very, it's not, what's the word, like it's just very energy, not draining, but it's like often you feel like you're giving and not receiving. So you
Yeah.
need to get used to that one comment that you receive on LinkedIn needs to help you. It needs to be your fuel for the whole month of giving.
Yeah.
Right. So be out there and help people and support. Like I often community members like helping build community that are building communities, and like they would jump on a call with me and say, like asking for help, and I do that, and often it's not related with my work, and I'm not charging them, but I'm there to help someone. Like I love that. So you need to, I think, have a little bit of that in your DNA. You just need to like it a bit. So first try if you like it and
Yeah.
be part of communities.
Kasia, last but not the least, how does the running remote conferences contribute to the
Mm.
strength and cohesion of the community?
It's fundamental. Like it's what we talked about remote companies offsite. So for me, the running remote conference is a retreat or an offsite for our community. You've been at the conference, you know how much bonding happens there. So it happens once a year, but the engagement, the bonding, the trust we've built there lasts for at least 6 months. And so it's super important. It's a retreat for our community. Um, and I wish we would have done, and I would like to do more of it, like in some sort of workations. Again, like this would have to be for founders or people ops, like workations for different type of people. And I would like to do that more often. That would be our goal for the upcoming years. That would be our vision. Yeah, but it's super important for us to build community.
Thank you, Kasia, for giving your valuable time and sharing insights on, let's say, the evolution of community in the last 10 years to the future of community building. Also sharing
Mm,
some of your personal experiences and some of the challenges that you are rather facing, and also facing it head on as as a head of a community which is one of the biggest community in the remote sector. Also,
mm,
thank you for being there and sharing experiential learnings. I think that will really benefit remote leaders, also folks who are in the people domain, and founders or startup founders who are just wanting to start their community. Thank you for giving very very simple, but I would say commonsensical steps that needs to be taken rather than
mm,
just thinking and not doing. I think you shared some insights on what needs to be done. Just before this we end this conversation, if you have any closing comments, and if any viewer would like to get in touch with you, what would be the
mhm,
best ways they can connect with you, and also if they would want to explore more about running remote,
mhm.
how do they find the community?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, thank you so much, Sagar. It's such a pleasure and such a beautiful journey that we are both on, and it's amazing that we've met after few years, after seeing each other in a different continent, different setup, different industry, and we are now again talking slightly different topics. But it's such a beautiful way to connect, and I'm super happy that you're part of the community now. The best way probably to reach out is on LinkedIn, where I share some tips on community building and remote work as well. So I always reply to messages in my inbox. So feel free to reach out there. As for the Running Remote community, it's a place for founders, C-level executives, and people ops executives who are running actively remote and distributed companies that are bigger than 10 people, 10 employees. Because naturally, when you're a startup, you have totally different challenges at that point, and you're most likely raising money and trying to survive. You're not thinking yet about remote management, and that's the thing we are discussing in the community. That's the things we can help you with. So just go to runningremote.com/community, and you will find more info community, or hit me up on LinkedIn. And yeah, I hope to see you there.
Yeah, yeah. Thank you, Kasia. And I would also like to thank all the viewers for consistently joining and listening to the podcasts that we do. Interestingly, just before the podcast, Kasia asked me, "Okay, how many podcasts you have done?" So I'm really happy
Mhm.
and happy to share that. I think I have completed more than, I would say, 53. I think this is the 54th podcast, which is uh, which is having the theme that is future of work, in which we are getting all the remote leaders to share their insights on multiple fronts. So I'm glad that we have been able to share and multiply those learnings, and I promise I'll continue to do this and get wonderful folks to be part of this initiative in the times to come. Thank you once again.
That's amazing. Thank you for doing that, Sagar.